The Defence Investment Plan was seen as a legacy project for Sir Keir Starmer, something he could point to as an achievement from his time as Prime Minister. But it's now become clear there is a hole where some of the money ought to be. The small print has revealed that his successor, Andy Burnham, we presume, will have to find nearly £5 billion in cuts or extra taxes to cover the costs. Well, Luke Pollard is Labour's Defence Procurement Minister and joins us now from Westminster. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why has Sir Keir Starmer left £4.7 billion of this plan unfunded?
Well, we've announced a £15 billion increase in defence spending, which is a huge boost for our readiness and helps us buy the kit and equipment that we need. That's £298 billion over the next 4 years that we'll spend on defence. Of the £15 billion extra spending power that we now have, with the Treasury set out how £10 billion or so of that will be spent by asking other departments to cut their capital funding by 1p in the pound and transfer that money to defence. £4.7 billion will be set out at the autumn budget, and that's not unusual for governments to do. The last government did so when they made changes to the bus cap in 2022 and the Shared Prosperity Fund, making the announcement and then setting out how that will be paid for at the following budget.
Is it responsible to announce a plan that is only part funded and which also relies on over £10 billion of efficiency savings from within the Ministry of Defence?
Funding our defence when the threats we face are increasing is the right action for any government to take. That's certainly the thing that we did yesterday, and we will set out the path to spending 3.5% of our GDP on defence at the spending review that takes place next year. Now, I think the efficiencies that you just mentioned are the right things to do. Now, we inherited a procurement system, as an example, in 2024 that was slow and inefficient. We've been looking at how we speed that up. That means not only taking costs out of the system, which helps contribute to those efficiency savings you just mentioned, but importantly speeds up the delivery of kit and equipment getting to the front line.
If they're the right thing to do, where will those savings come from?
Well, we've set out a number of those already. So, for example, we're removing some of the surplus land that the MOD has. We have around 1% of United Kingdom in MOD ownership. There's some parts of the country that, of course, we use quite a lot, naval bases, Salisbury Plain, for instance, but there's lots of pockets of land that the Ministry of Defence no longer needs for military purpose that we'll be selling. We will also be reducing the civil service workforce costs by 10% by 2030, and we'll be automating 20% of our HR, finance and commercial functions using AI and new technology. Now, that takes out a lot of costs.
Let's level with people here, because this is stuff that every single business in the country is saying, you know, we can reduce our staffing costs, we can do this, that and the other. How on earth can people trust you this morning when you say you've announced a £15 billion plan for defence investment, but a decent chunk of it isn't funded? It's not a £15 billion plan. It's a £10 billion plan at best.
No, that's not right. I've just set out how we're going to deal with some of the efficiencies. I've just answered your question there. But if you recall the last budget that Rachel Reeves gave, she increased the amount of headroom in the budget to around £23 billion. Now, headroom out of Treasury speak is the unallocated money we expect to receive in taxes that we haven't allocated to a budget. Now, we need roughly just over £1 billion a year. That'll be extra. That'll be set out in the budget in the autumn, using the Treasury's financial headroom or any other measures that they seek to do in making spending decisions. That's pretty standard practice, as I've set out.
I find it fascinating that you can come here this morning and tell our listeners that it's standard practice to announce a plan for defence that is not funded. There are many, many people, defence experts, military chiefs, people inside government who do not agree that this is standard practice. And in fact, the money that's been found means that roads won't be upgraded. And crucially, it means that military homes, the homes of those people who serve this country, many of which are in a totally dire state, will not be upgraded anytime soon. You've said, you know what, those families can wait. Those are the families who are working hard to protect this country.
That's not right. That's not right.
That is in your own defence investment plan, that you will put back the investment in those homes. Why should they have to sacrifice having their homes upgraded to a standard that many of us would expect when the government is still spending billions of pounds on the welfare budget and that is not being touched? How is that fair?
Kate, you've just asked me 5 different issues there. Let me try and address those. First of all, on military housing, we've been very clear. We've inherited a situation where our service families were being asked to live in military housing that wasn't acceptable. That was a legacy and a scandal left by the Conservatives. It's not good enough. That's why we announced only a few months ago the £9 billion package that will refit or rebuild 9 in 10 military homes over the next decade. We've already delivered the rebuilding and refit of the worst 1,250 of those military homes.
And you're delaying it. This plan will delay it.
If you ask me 5 questions, at least give me a chance to answer some of them, Kate. What we're doing is we're spending £3 billion for the remainder of this Parliament and £5 billion in the full Parliament that will take place from 2029. Now, that is honouring the commitment that we've given. It's the full £9 billion that we promised. And as you will know, the Armed Forces Bill is going through Parliament at the moment that will stand up the Defence Housing Service that will help not only refit and rebuild those military homes, giving our people somewhere decent to live, which they have not had for 14 years.
You are delaying.
But also develop more housing on the land that we've got.
Be honest with people. These are the people that serve our country. Be honest with them now. You are delaying those upgrades. That's what you're doing here. To fund this plan, you're delaying those upgrades.
Yes, a small amount of the money in the defence housing budget has been moved into the next Parliament, so we could prioritise the military readiness for our forces now. That was the right tough decision that we've taken. Another question you asked me just a moment ago was around where's this money coming from? We've taken the difficult decisions outside the spending review, which is pretty unprecedented, of asking government departments to spend 1p in every pound of their capital budgets to move that to the defence budget. That was a difficult decision that was required to increase our budget. Now, you will know that you normally set departmental budgets at a spending review where every single department's budget is looked at and the money is allocated for that period. The Defence Investment Plan sits outside a spending review. It's pretty unprecedented that that level of change was made. But we need to be clear, the threats we're facing are rising and they're real. That's why we've taken the decision to increase defence spending. The spending power uplift that defence has is £15 billion.
What I actually asked you about was welfare spending. And the reason I asked you that was because you've just admitted that those military families will have to wait. They have been put to further back in the queue to deal with housing which you say is totally unacceptable. That is a political choice that you will have to stand behind.
No,
but at the same time, let me finish my question. Let me finish my question. But at the same time as doing that, you are still spending billions of pounds on welfare in this country. Even if we take pensions out of that equation, billions of pounds. I'm asking you, how is that right or fair?
Well, I want to see people who can work in work, and that's the effort that we're trying to make on welfare. But let me just deal with the question you put about defence housing. We've already refurbished 1,250 of the worst housing. So we're already making a difference. We've delivered many of those projects early. We're spending £3 billion, £3,000 million on defence housing in this Parliament. A small amount of that money has been reprofiled to the next Parliament so we could focus on military readiness.
Yeah, you promised more and it's been delayed, and that's what I said. Let's move on because there is another
£3 billion. But please, let's get to the report.
I'm not taking away from what you're spending.
On our military families and their housing.
Nobody's taking away from what you're spending, but you cannot promise people that you will upgrade their homes, delay that, and then tell them, but look how much we've already spent. That is a completely different argument. If you are going to make these political choices, you need to be upfront and honest with the people who that will affect. And that's what I'm trying to get to this morning. There is another significant element to this, though, and that is the future funding of our defence commitment. We are about to head to NATO next week. We've promised to hit 3% of GDP on defence spending by 2030. There is no plan to meet this target in this defence investment plan. We'll hit around 2.7% if all those efficiency savings are found, if the extra money is found. How are we going to explain ourselves to our NATO allies next week?
Well, first of all, Kate, we are delivering our full £9 billion commitment on defence housing. Let me be very clear, because I think the way you represented it was not accurate.
Only if you're in
government. Over 10 years.
Only if you're in government in
the
the
next
next
billion
Parliament.
Over 10 years.
Only if you're
full
in government.
£9 billion over 10 years, which is the commitment we made, which is what we're delivering. Now, when it comes to the increase in defence spending to 3.5%, the Defence Investment Plan sets out that will be set out at the spending review next year. Now, you've already said in an earlier question about the decisions we've taken to adjust budgets outside of a spending review to fund the £15 billion increase in defence spending. To get to 3.5% of GDP from the 2.7 that this plan will deliver will require those decisions to be made in a proper full spending review. That's what will be set out in the spending review that is planned for next year.
There is no plan, is there? There's no plan for that.
Well, the spending review is planned, and that's been announced previously. And so the spending review next year will set out the profile of spend between next year and 2035 for defence. But what we have in the Defence Investment Plan is a scalable plan. So we know that with a decade ahead of rising defence spending, the plan we've announced will scale to deliver that. With more money, we'll increase the purchase of munitions stockpiles, refilling the stockpiles that were left empty by the last government. We'll invest more in our readiness. That means more training and more deployments for our people. We'll also buy more drones and autonomy to increase the lethality.
This is a fig leaf. We are turning up to a meeting of our closest allies with a fig leaf. And in fact, Admiral Sir Keith Blunt, who is one of the most senior military positions in NATO, he held that until very recently. He has warned we will lose our status as a leading nation if we don't take this seriously. We are not serious and credible on that 3% target. We don't have a plan. Can you guarantee that we will hit that by 2030?
Well, I've been very clear. I'd like to see more defence spending. That's something I'm on the record saying. And it will be set out in the spending review next year about how we reach that 3% early in the next Parliament.
Do you have faith it will be hit?
And then
Do you have faith in it?
Well, yeah. I do. Labour governments have always funded defence well. We're spending more on defence in this year, before this increase in defence spending, than at any single year under the last 14 years of Conservatives. We are increasing our defence spending. We're increasing our readiness. We're reforming procurement.
Okay.
We're retiring old kit and equipment, and we're buying new technology
Luke
for our
Pollard,
armed forces.
Labour's Defence Procurement Minister, thank you for joining us on the programme this morning.
Thanks, Kate.